5 minutes after I accidentally sent the most dangerous text of my life, my neighbor knocked on my door wearing rain on her shoulders and a look that made my knees briefly forget they had a job. When I opened it, Mara Whitcomb held up her phone. On the screen, in my own traitorous blue bubble, were the words, "If you keep biting your lip at me in the elevator, I'm going to start believing you're doing it on purpose." She tilted her head, dark hair damp against her cheek, eyes steady on mine. Then she said, "Finish what you started." That was the moment I realized a man could survive rent, taxes, heartbreak, and one suspicious smell in the hallway for 3 days straight. But not necessarily eye contact with the woman in 4B. My name is Eli Turner. I was 25 working as a freelance web designer out of a one-bedroom apartment in a brick building where the pipes complained louder than the tenants. I had exactly 2 plants, one of which was thriving out of spite, and a dating history best described as learning experience with receipts. 6 months earlier, my ex had told me I was safe. She meant it as an insult. "You're kind, Eli," she'd said, standing in my kitchen with her coat already on, "but sometimes kind feels like beige." I had thought beige was respectable, neutral, goes with everything. Apparently, it also meant forgettable, so I had done what any emotionally bruised man with Wi-Fi would do. I got quieter, worked more, and convinced myself that wanting someone was much safer from across a hallway. That hallway happened to contain Mara. She'd moved into 4B in early spring with 2 suitcases, a stack of art books, and a laugh that carried through the walls whenever her sister called. She was 24, worked at a small architecture firm downtown, and had this way of walking like she was always late to something interesting. Mara was not loud, not exactly, she was just present. You noticed when she got home because the lock clicked twice and she always sighed before taking off her shoes. You noticed when she cooked because cumin and garlic drifted under your door and made your frozen burrito feel personally judged. You noticed when she passed you in the laundry room wearing cutoffs, an oversized charcoal sweatshirt, and no makeup, and somehow looked like the reason men used to write letters by candlelight. I noticed too much, which is why I had rules. Rule 1, do not flirt with the neighbor. Rule 2, do not make the elevator weird. Rule 3, if Mara smiles at you like she knows you're trying not to stare, look at the floor immediately and pretend the old carpet is fascinating. The problem was, Mara had started breaking my rules. Not obviously, not in a way I could take to court. She'd hold the elevator door a second longer than necessary and say, "Evening 4A," like my apartment number was a private joke. She'd leave extra coffee pods on the mail table with a sticky note that said, "You look like a dark roast emergency." She once knocked on my door at 11:30 at night holding a jar of pasta sauce and said, "You seem like a man with upper body strength and emotional availability. Can you open this?" I opened it. She looked at the jar, then at me. "Impressive. It's mostly technique. Is that what you tell all the jars?" I should have said something clever. Instead, I said, "Only the ones I respect." She laughed so hard she leaned her shoulder against my doorframe, and for 1 second the hallway disappeared. Then she went back to 4B, and I stood there holding the ghost of her perfume in the air like an idiot. That Friday, a storm rolled over the city just before dinner. Thunder shook the windows. My laptop glowed on my kitchen table. I had a client website open, a half-eaten bowl of cereal beside me, and a text thread with my best friend Julian. Julian had been trying to convince me for weeks that Mara was flirting with me. "She likes you," he'd written. "She likes free jar service," I typed back. "She calls you 4A. That is where I live. She gave you coffee. Maybe I look tired." "You always look tired. That's not the point." I glanced toward the shared wall. On the other side, faint music played. Something slow, jazzy, with a woman singing like she had secrets. Mara had been coming home later that week, usually around 9, heels in hand, shoulders tense. Twice I'd heard her on the phone, voice low and clipped, saying things like, "I'm not discussing this again," before silence fell. I didn't know the details. I didn't ask, but I wanted to. That was the dangerous part, not the attraction. Attraction was easy. Attraction was elevator eye contact and imagining her hand brushing mine over mail. Wanting to know when someone was sad? Wanting to make tea and not make a joke? That got complicated. Julian sent another message. If you had one honest thing to say to her, what would it be? I stared at the phone. Then, because storms make fools of reasonable men, I typed, if you keep biting your lip at me in the elevator, I'm going to start believing you're doing it on purpose. I meant to send it to Julian. I absolutely, disastrously sent it to Mara. The second I saw her name at the top of the thread, my soul left my body, assessed the damage, and refused to come back. Mara Whitcomb delivered. No, I whispered. I grabbed the phone like I could physically pull the message back through the screen. 3 dots appeared, then vanished, then appeared again. My heart was beating so hard I could hear it over the rain. I considered moving. Not apartments, states, maybe countries with low internet access and forgiving weather. Before I could decide between Oregon and witness protection, 3 sharp knocks hit my door. I froze. Another knock, not angry, confident. I opened the door halfway because apparently I thought a 3-inch wooden slab could protect me from consequences. Mara stood there in a burgundy blouse tucked into dark jeans, rain sparkling in her hair. She smelled faintly like cold air and vanilla. Her cheeks were pink, either from the stares or the text or the fact that she knew exactly what she was doing to me. She lifted her phone. Eli, she said. I swallowed. In my defense, that better be good. I was sending that to Julian. Her eyebrows rose. You were telling Julian about my lip? When you say it like that, I sound worse. How should I say it? Maybe don't. Her mouth curved, not a full smile, something smaller. More dangerous. The hallway light flickered above us. Rain hammered the windows at the end of the corridor. Somewhere downstairs, a door slammed, but neither of us moved. I'm sorry, I said, and I meant it. I didn't want to make you uncomfortable. Mara's gaze softened just enough to make my chest ache. You didn't. That landed between us with more force than the thunder. I gripped the edge of the door. I didn't? She stepped closer, close enough that I could see one tiny raindrop clinging to her lower lashes. No, she said, but you did make me curious. My brain offered several responses and all of them were unemployed. She glanced past me into my apartment. The laptop, the cereal, the plant dying heroically on the windowsill. Were you working? She asked. Trying to. On a Friday night? I'm a wild man. I can tell. Nothing says danger like oat cereal and 2-factor authentication. I laughed before I could stop myself. The sound loosened something in the hallway. Then she looked back at me and the humor thinned into something quieter. I had a terrible day, she said. Just that. No details, no performance. My hand slipped from the door. I'm sorry. I was going to ignore it, your text. She tucked a wet strand of hair behind her ear. I was going to be mature. Always a risky choice. Exactly. Her smile flickered. Then I thought, maybe I'm tired of pretending I don't notice you noticing me. Every inch of me went still. There it was. Not a rescue. Not a misunderstanding. Not me imagining signals because loneliness had made me hopeful. Mara was standing in my doorway choosing the same dangerous honesty I had accidentally thrown at her. I opened the door wider. She looked at the space I'd made, then back at me. Eli, she said softly, are you going to invite me in or are we going to keep flirting in a hallway with Mrs. Bellamy listening through her peephole? From behind 4C, a lock clicked. Mara's eyes widened. I leaned out and said, Evening, Mrs. Bellamy. A tiny gasp came from behind the door. Mara covered her mouth, laughing silently, and that was what finished me. Not the blouse, not the rain, not even the text. That laugh. I stepped back. Come in, I said. She crossed the threshold. Slowly, like we both understood that a hallway was one thing, but my apartment was another. I closed the door behind her. For a moment we just stood there, inches apart, rain ticking against the window, her phone still glowing in her hand. Then Mara looked up at me and said, Now tell me the truth. My pulse kicked. About what? Her eyes dropped to my mouth for half a second. When did you first want to send that text? When did you first want to send that text? Mara asked it like she was asking whether I took sugar in my coffee. I, however, reacted like she'd requested classified military secrets. She stood in the middle of my apartment, rain damp hair curling at the ends, eyes bright with challenge. My kitchen light warmed the burgundy of her blouse. Behind her, my cereal bowl sat on the table, ruining any illusion that I was a mysterious, capable man. I don't know, I said. Liar. Wow, immediate. You looked up and to the left. That means nothing. It means you're building a fake answer. I folded my arms. Are you always this observant? I design spaces for a living. I notice what people try to hide. That sentence did something to the room. I looked away first. Mara's voice softened. Eli. The way she said my name made the whole thing feel less like flirting and more like standing at the edge of a door I'd been afraid to open. So I told her the truth. The first time was in the elevator 2 weeks ago, I said. You had blueprints under your arm and your hair was up with a pencil, which I didn't know people actually did outside movies. Her smile grew slowly. You were on the phone, I continued, telling someone you refused to make a lobby look like a dentist's office with commitment issues. Then you hung up, caught me smiling, and bit your lip like you were trying not to laugh. I remember that. Yeah? You got out on the third floor by mistake. I closed my eyes briefly. I was hoping you'd forgotten. I cherished it. Cruel woman. Honest woman. She stepped toward the table, picked up the spoon beside my cereal, and gave the bowl a judgmental look. Is this dinner? I was emotionally unavailable to groceries. That's tragic. I was going to order something. Were you? No. She set the spoon down. Then I'm saving you. From cereal? From yourself. Before I could respond, she moved toward my kitchen like she belonged there. It was small enough that two people made it intimate by accident. She opened one cabinet, found nothing useful, opened another, and discovered pasta. You snoop confidently, I said. I assess. You invade. You invited me in. Under romantic duress. Mara glanced over her shoulder. Is that what this is? Romantic? The word struck the air between us and stayed there. I leaned against the counter close enough that if either of us shifted, our arms would brush. I think it might be. Her expression changed, not backing away, not teasing now. Good, she said. Just one word, but it landed like a hand at the center of my chest. We made pasta. Or Mara made pasta while I obeyed instructions, and tried not to stare at the curve of her neck when she leaned over the pot. The storm kept rattling the windows, the kitchen fogged warm with steam, garlic, and something dangerously close to domestic fantasy. She found olive oil, red pepper flakes, and the one lemon I had bought with fitness intentions and abandoned. You have the supplies of a man who wants to seem like he cooks, she said. I cook. What do you cook? Toast, eggs, toast with eggs. Ambitious. I've been described as beige, so I try not to startle people. Her hand paused over the pan. I regretted it immediately. Sorry, that was... Who called you beige? I tried to shrug. An ex. Mara turned down the burner and faced me fully. That's a stupid thing to say to someone. She meant safe. Safe isn't beige. Her voice was quiet, almost fierce. Safe is rare. I looked at her then, really looked. The confidence was still there, but under it was fatigue. The kind a person carried after too many conversations where they had to defend wanting more. Is that what your terrible day was about? I asked. Mara leaned back against the opposite counter, arms crossing lightly. Partly. You don't have to tell me. I know. She watched me for a second. That's why I might. The pasta boiled between us, bubbling like it had opinions. My boss gave my proposal to a senior designer, she said. A man who changed 3 lines and got praised for bringing clarity. Then my mother called and asked if I was still being difficult at work. I winced. That's not a terrible day. That's a criminal day. It was annoying, but what really got me was... She exhaled. I didn't want to go home and pretend I was fine. You could have knocked. I know that now. Something tender moved through me. Mara. She looked up. You can knock. Her mouth parted slightly as if she hadn't expected that to hit. For jars? She asked softer. For jars, bad days, pasta inspections. I swallowed. Anything. Her eyes held mine, then the pot hissed over. We both lunged for it. Our hands collided on the handle. Hot, I said, though I wasn't talking about the pot. Mara laughed under her breath. Smooth. Accidentally. Most of your charm seems accidental. I've decided to accept that as a compliment. We drained the pasta shoulder to shoulder, bumping elbows, trading small smiles like contraband. Then we ate at my tiny table, knees nearly touching underneath. It felt like a date without anyone daring to call it one. Mara twirled pasta onto her fork. So, what did Julian say after you sent me the text? I haven't checked. I assume he felt a disturbance in the force. You talk about me to him often? I considered lying. She arched one brow. Yes, I admitted. What do you say? That you're funny, smart, possibly dangerous with office supplies. And pretty? I looked at her across the little table, rainlight sliding over her cheek. No, I said. Her smile faltered, just a fraction. I reached for courage and found it waiting. Pretty is too small, I said. You're hard to look away from. The room went quiet. Mara lowered her fork. For once, she didn't have a comeback ready. She only looked at me like I'd stepped closer, without moving. Eli, she said. My name again. Different this time. I pushed back from the table just enough to stand. I'm sorry if that was too much. It wasn't. She stood too. Now there was no table between us. We were in that narrow strip of space between kitchen and living room, close enough for me to notice her breathing had changed. Mine had too. Mara lifted her chin. You know, for someone who accidentally sent a bold text, you're very careful. I don't want to be another bad part of your day. You're not. Her fingers brushed mine, once, deliberately. But I don't want careful to mean afraid. My heart hammered. I am afraid, I said. Her gaze searched mine. Of what? Wanting you and finding out I imagined half of this. She stepped closer, her toes nearly touching mine. You didn't. 2 words. A bridge. I raised my hand slowly, giving her every chance to move away. She didn't. When my fingers touched her cheek, her eyes fluttered for half a second, and I felt that tiny surrender like a spark up my arm. You're sure? I asked. Mara's smile came back, soft and wicked at the edges. If you ask one more time, 4A, I'm going to think you want a signed permit. I do respect paperwork. Eli. That was all. I kissed her. Not dramatically. Not like the movies where the world explodes. It was quieter than that and somehow worse for my nervous system. Her mouth was warm, careful for one breath, then not careful at all. She leaned into me with a small sound that erased every insult I'd ever believed about myself. My hand slid to her waist. Hers found the front of my shirt, fingers curling there, holding me in place like I might be foolish enough to retreat. I wasn't. The kiss deepened, slowly, sweet and searching, until the storm outside felt far away and the only weather was her. When we broke apart, Mara stayed close, forehead nearly touching mine. Well, she whispered. I tried to speak, failed, tried again. Dinner was good. She laughed against my mouth. That's your review? I'm working with limited oxygen. Her fingers loosened from my shirt but didn't leave. I should probably go before this becomes a very different kind of first date. I blinked. First date? Her eyes warmed. You fed me. I interrogated you. We kissed beside a dying plant. It counts. The plant is struggling, not dying. It's seen things. I smiled. Can I have a second date? Mara's expression went gentler than I expected. Yes, she said. Ask properly tomorrow. Tomorrow? She backed toward the door, still smiling. Don't get lazy just because you're a good kisser. My entire body lit up. Good? Don't fish. At least define good. She opened the door, then looked back at me from the hallway. Good enough that I'm going to think about it in the elevator, she said. And yes, I'll probably bite my lip on purpose. Then she stepped into the hall and closed the door softly behind her. I stood there grinning like an idiot for a full minute before my phone buzzed. Julian. So, did you tell her? I looked at Mara's closed door across the hall. Then I typed back, accidentally. Best mistake of my life. I slept 3 hours and woke up smiling like a man who had discovered buried treasure in his own kitchen. Then panic arrived with coffee. How did a person ask properly for a second date when the first one had begun with accidental digital harassment and ended with the best kiss of his life? I rejected 7 text drafts. Want dinner? Too plain. Would you like to accompany me to a dining establishment? Too serial killer with a thesaurus. I can't stop thinking about your mouth. True, but not wise before noon. At 10:14, I gave up on clever and knocked on 4B with 2 coffees, a paper bag from the bakery downstairs, and the expression of a man prepared to be judged. Mara opened the door in soft gray joggers and a black tank top, hair piled messily on top of her head. She looked sleepy and beautiful and annoyed in the exact proportions required to ruin me. Her gaze dropped to the coffees. Bribe? Offering. To what deity? Second date approval board. Her mouth twitched. They're strict. I brought almond croissants. The board is listening. I held out 1 coffee. Mara, would you like to go on a date with me today? A real one. Intentional. No misdirected text required. She took the coffee, but didn't answer immediately. Instead, she leaned one shoulder against the doorframe and studied me. You practiced that. 7 drafts. Any terrible ones? I nearly used the phrase dining establishment. She winced. I'm glad you edited. Me too. Her eyes softened over the rim of her cup. Yes, Eli, I would like to go on a real, intentional date with you today. A ridiculous amount of relief moved through me. Great, I said. Good, excellent. I'm very casual about this. Clearly. What time? She glanced back into her apartment. I caught a glimpse of rolled drawings on the table, a mug with lipstick on the edge, and a framed print of some sunlit courtyard that felt exactly like her. I have to fix a proposal this morning, she said, because apparently my weekend belongs to men named Greg with opinions about glass walls. I hate Greg already. You don't even know him. I'm trusting your tone. She smiled, then reached into the paper bag and tore off the corner of a croissant. 3. Perfect. Wear comfortable shoes? I blinked. For dinner? For the date. I thought I was planning the date. You planned asking. I'm planning survival. That sounds ominous. Her smile turned wicked. Trust me, 4A. I did. That was the alarming part. At 3, Mara appeared in the hallway wearing jeans, white sneakers, and a green jacket that made her eyes look warmer. She glanced down at my shoes. Acceptable. I live for your approval. Dangerous habit. We took the elevator down, shoulder to shoulder, both pretending the mirrored wall wasn't forcing us to watch each other try not to smile. On the 2nd floor, the elevator stopped. No one got in. Mara looked at the open doors, then at me. Ghosts. Maybe Mrs. Bellamy hit the button and fled. She's gathering evidence. For what? Our hallway misconduct. I leaned a little closer. We have misconduct? Her eyes dropped to my mouth. Not enough to convict. The door slid shut. I forgot what floor we were on. Mara took me to a plant, nursery 10 blocks away, tucked between a laundromat and a shop that sold lamps shaped like animals. Rain still clung to the city from the night before, making the sidewalk shine. Inside the nursery, everything smelled like wet soil and green leaves. My plant is not dying, I said, following her past ferns. Your plant is writing a goodbye note. It's dramatic. It's crispy. She led me to a row of glossy, forgiving-looking plants and tapped one. This is a pothos, very hard to kill. Are you insulting me or encouraging me? Yes. I picked up a small one with heart-shaped leaves. This one? Mara moved beside me, close enough that her sleeve brushed mine. She touched one leaf, gentle and absent. Good choice. It grows toward light. Something about the way she said it made me look at her. Mara. Are we still talking about the plant? Her fingers stilled on the leaf. For a moment, the nursery noise faded. The clerk watering succulents, the door chime, traffic beyond the glass. I don't know, she said quietly. Maybe I am. I set the plant back down. She looked almost embarrassed, which I was starting to understand meant she had said something true before she could hide it. So I gave her one back. I've been growing toward your door for months, I said. Her breath caught barely. Then she smiled, but not the teasing one. This one was smaller, vulnerable. That was unfairly lovely. I can ruin it if you want. Please don't. I was going to mention fertilizer. There it is. We bought the pothos and a blue ceramic pot she insisted matched my apartment, despite its tragic lack of personality. Afterward, we walked to a little ramen place with fogged windows and shared a table in the corner. Date. A real one. It should have felt strange moving from hallway banter to bowls of noodles and knees, touching under the table, but it didn't. Mara asked about my work. Not the polite version people use before checking their phones, but the real version. What do you like about building websites? She asked. I shrugged. Making things easier for people, I guess. Taking something messy and making it feel possible. That sounds like you. I glanced up. Beige? No. She looked offended on my behalf again. Steady, there's a difference. I stirred my broth, unexpectedly exposed. Sometimes I worry steady is just another word for forgettable. Mara set her chopsticks down. Eli, she said, I kissed you once and spent 20 minutes this morning deciding which shirt made me look like I wasn't trying too hard. You're not forgettable. Warmth rushed through me so fast I nearly knocked over my water. You tried for me? She rolled her eyes. Don't look so pleased. I can't help it. I'm deeply pleased. I noticed. For the record, you looked good opening the door. You look good now. You'd look good yelling at Greg in a conference room. That's oddly specific. I'm developing range. Her smile faded into something thoughtful. What about you? Did you try? I changed shirts 3 times. Only 3? And rehearsed knocking. She leaned forward, chin in hand. How does one rehearse knocking? With commitment. Show me later. If this date goes well. Her foot brushed mine under the table, deliberate. It's going well. My phone buzzed during dessert. I ignored it. Then Mara's buzzed. She looked at the screen and the light left her face. Greg? I asked. Worse, my mother. You don't have to answer. I know. But her thumb hovered, guilt doing what guilt does. I reached across the table, palm up, not taking the phone, not rescuing her from it, just offering. Mara looked at my hand, then placed hers in it. Her fingers were cold at first. Then they tightened. She makes me feel 12, she said softly. Like wanting credit for my own work is rude. Like being angry means I'm difficult. I stroked my thumb once over her knuckles. What do you want to be instead? She met my eyes. Certain. There, in a ramen shop with condensation on the windows and a tiny pothos between us, Mara let me see the part of her that wasn't all clever edges and confident smiles. I lifted her hand and kissed her knuckles. Then start here, I said. Be certain you don't have to answer. She looked at me for a long second. Then she turned the phone face down. I'm certain, she said. It felt like more than a silenced call. After dinner, we walked home slowly, our hands finding each other, somewhere between the noodle shop and the crosswalk. Neither of us commented on it. We just kept holding on. At the building entrance, Mara stopped under the awning. The evening air smelled like rain and exhaust. A car hissed by through a puddle. I don't want the date to be over yet, she said. My heart made an undignified attempt at flight. I have a newly adopted plant, I said. It could use a welcome party. Very smooth. I'm improving. In the elevator, we stood closer than necessary. On the fourth floor, the doors opened, but Mara didn't move right away. What? I asked. She looked at me from beneath her lashes. I'm deciding whether to be mature. How did that go last time? Poorly. Then she caught the front of my jacket and pulled me down to her. This kiss was different from the first. Less question, more answer. Her back touched the elevator wall, my hand found her waist, and the doors began to close until I shoved one arm out to stop them. The elevator dinged in protest. Mara laughed against my mouth. Romantic. I'm multitasking. You're blocking public transportation. Worth it. She kissed me again, softer, then stepped out into the hall with pink cheeks and bright eyes. At my door, we repotted the pothos on newspaper spread across the kitchen floor. Soil got on her wrist. I brushed it away with my thumb, then kissed the same spot because I couldn't not. Mara went still. Eli, she whispered. I looked up. Too much? No. Her hand slid into my hair, light but sure. Just don't stop choosing me like this. The words hit deeper than desire. I set the plan aside and moved closer on the kitchen floor. I won't, I said. Her forehead touched mine. For once, neither of us joked. Then my phone buzzed on the counter. Then hers. Then, from the hallway, came Mrs. Bellamy's scandalized voice. Oh, for heaven's sake, which one of you left a muddy trail shaped like a crime scene? Mrs. Bellamy's crime scene was, in fact, a dotted trail of potting soil from the elevator to my apartment. Mara and I froze on the kitchen floor, knees almost touching, hands still linked around the new pothos, like we'd been caught performing a sacred ritual. From the hallway, Mrs. Bellamy called, I have lived in this building 14 years. I know suspicious dirt when I see it. Mara pressed her lips together. I whispered, Don't laugh. I'm not. You're shaking. I'm furious with dignity. Another knock hit my door. Mr. Turner? Miss Whitcomb? I know you're in there. I heard romantic giggling. Mara lost the battle and bent forward, forehead landing on my shoulder. Her laugh was silent at first, then helpless. I wrapped an arm around her without thinking, and she tucked closer, still laughing into my shirt. It was ridiculous how natural it felt, how quickly my body had learned the shape of her near me. I should handle this, I said. You're going to leave me alone with the evidence? You're the architect. Create a defense. I opened the door to find Mrs. Bellamy in a lavender robe, silver hair and curlers, holding a dustpan like a legal document. Her eyes flicked past me to Mara on my kitchen floor. Oh, she said, delighted. It is a date. Mara lifted one soil-smudged hand. Good evening. Mrs. Bellamy narrowed her eyes. Plants are how it starts. How what starts? I asked. Everything. She handed me the dustpan. Clean the hallway, and don't overwater that pothos. Men always overwater when they're emotional. Mara made a strangled sound behind me. I accepted the dustpan. Noted. Mrs. Bellamy leaned closer and lowered her voice, though Mara could absolutely hear. She smiles more around you. My chest tightened. Then the older woman marched away with the satisfaction of a person who had just advanced a neighborhood investigation. I closed the door and turned. Mara wasn't laughing anymore. She sat cross-legged on the newspaper, her expression soft in a way that made my humor fade. What? I asked. She's nosy. Deeply. But she noticed. I set the dustpan down. That you smile. Mara looked at the plant between us. I've been trying not to. I lowered myself back onto the floor across from her. Why? She picked at a corner of newspaper. Because if I admitted I liked seeing you in the elevator, or hearing you laugh through the wall, or knowing you were right across the hall after a bad day, she exhaled. Then I'd have to admit I wanted something. And wanting makes me feel like I'm standing in traffic. I didn't rush to fill the silence. I was learning that Mara gave jokes quickly, but truths carefully, and if I moved too fast, she might tuck this one away. So I just reached across the little mess of soil and offered my hand. She took it. I want something too, I said. Her thumb paused against my knuckle. What? You, not in a vague hallway crush way. Not just because you kiss like you're trying to ruin my life. Her mouth curved faintly. I am. You're succeeding. I squeezed her hand. I want to know you when you're tired and brilliant and furious. I want to be the person you knock for. I want second dates and third dates and whatever number comes after the one where we stop pretending this is casual. Mara's eyes shone, but she kept her chin up. That was dangerously direct. I'm experimenting. With what? Not being afraid. For a moment, all I heard was rainwater dripping from the fire escape. Then Mara moved. She crawled the short distance across the newspaper, careful of the plant, and settled into my lap like she'd already decided she belonged there. My hands found her waist, stunned and grateful. Hers cupped my face. I want you too, she whispered. Even when you say things that make me want to hide under furniture. That's my gift. I'm serious. So am I. Her eyes searched mine. I don't know how to do this without trying to outrun the vulnerable parts. Then don't outrun them alone. That was when she kissed me. Slowly at first. Then with a kind of relieved hunger that made my back hit the cabinet and my entire brain surrender. Soil crinkled under our knees. The pothos sat beside us, newly planted and ignored, while Mara's fingers slid into my hair and I held her like choosing had become physical. When she pulled back, her forehead rested against mine. Third date, she said breathlessly. I blinked. We're already scheduling it? I like planning. I've noticed. You plan the third, I planned today. Deal. And Eli? Yeah? Her voice softened. Please don't make me feel foolish for wanting this. The ache in my chest was immediate. I kissed her once, gently. Never. Her phone rang. The sound sliced through the room. Mara closed her eyes. I didn't have to ask who it was. Her body had gone tense in my arms, all the softness interrupted. She climbed off my lap and grabbed the phone from the table. Mother, the screen said. Mara stared at it until it stopped ringing. Then a text appeared. We need to discuss your attitude. Call me. Another followed. And your boss contacted me. I'm disappointed, Mara. Her face drained. Your boss called your mother? I asked. No. Her voice was flat. He knows her socially. Charity board circles. She swallowed. He probably mentioned I was emotional about the proposal. I stood, moving close, but not crowding her. Mara. She laughed once without humor. I'm 24 years old, and somehow they still find ways to put me at the kids' table. You know you didn't do anything wrong. I know. Her grip tightened on the phone. Knowing and feeling it are different. I wanted to fix it. Say the perfect thing. Make Greg spontaneously understand intellectual property and basic human decency. Make her mother apologize with flowers and emotional literacy. But romance, I was learning, wasn't rescue. So I asked, what do you want right now? Mara looked at me like the question itself was unfamiliar. She hesitated. I want to not call her. Then don't. And I want to be angry without someone making me apologize for my tone. Be angry. Her eyes flashed. I worked on that proposal for 3 weeks. I stayed late, I skipped lunches. I rebuilt the entry sequence because Greg couldn't understand pedestrian flow if it slapped him with a zoning permit. There she is. And then he stands there with my drawings and says, we refined the concept. We. Like he didn't treat my idea as decorative until someone important liked it. I nodded. That's infuriating. It is. Her voice shook. And my mother will tell me to be strategic, which means quiet. She'll tell me not to burn bridges, but no one ever worries about the bridges burning me. She turned away, breathing hard. I stepped behind her, slow enough that she could refuse it, and wrapped my arms around her waist. She leaned back into me. Not much at first, then fully. I kissed the side of her head. You're not difficult for wanting credit. Her hands covered mine. Say it again. You're not difficult for wanting credit. Her breath trembled out. And you're not too much, I added. You're not too sharp. You're not ungrateful. You're not a problem to be managed. Mara turned in my arms, eyes wet now. That sounds dangerously like affection. It is affection. How much? I brushed my thumb beneath her eye, catching a tear before it fell. A worrying amount for 3 days and one accidental text. She laughed softly, and there she was again. Mine to witness, not own. She rose on her toes and kissed me, short, fierce, grateful. Then she looked down at her phone and typed something. I didn't look until she angled the screen toward me. I'm not available to discuss this tonight. We can speak tomorrow, and only if you're willing to hear me. She hit send before fear could stop her. Then she tossed the phone onto my couch like it had insulted her ancestors. I did it, she said. You did. I may vomit. I have ginger tea. Of course you do. I'm beige with amenities. She pointed at me. No more beige jokes. I hate her for giving you that word. Something in me went still. Mara touched my chest, right over my heartbeat. Your warm colors, Eli, deep ones. The kind people notice when they finally stop rushing. I had no defense against that. So I kissed her. Not because she was upset, not to distract her. Because she saw me in a way I hadn't realized I needed, and I wanted to answer with everything I had. Later, after we cleaned Mrs. Bellamy's scandalous hallway dirt and gave the pothos a place on my windowsill, Mara stood at my door with her jacket in her hands. I should sleep in my own apartment, she said. Responsible. Regrettably. I leaned on the doorframe. Third date tomorrow? She smiled. Ask properly. I took her hand. Mara, will you let me take you on a third date tomorrow? Where? Surprise. Comfortable shoes? Maybe. That's alarming. She squeezed my hand. Yes. I lifted her knuckles to my mouth. Good night. She looked at me for a long second, then pulled me down for one more kiss in the open doorway. Across the hall, Mrs. Bellamy's peephole darkened. Mara whispered against my lips. Give her something to report. Then she kissed me again. For our third date, I took Mara to the roof. Not because I was cheap, although my bank account had opinions. Because the roof of our building had the best view in the neighborhood if you ignored the air conditioning units, the ancient lawn chair with one missing arm, and the fact that someone had written Trevor was here on the brick in permanent marker. I brought takeout from the Thai place she loved. 2 blankets, a string of battery-powered lights, and the new pothos. Mara stopped at the top of the stairs and stared. You brought the plant? It's part of our story now. It has been alive for 24 hours and already overcome adversity. She walked toward the little setup, smiling like she was trying not to. You made the roof romantic. I made an attempt. You succeeded. That word from her felt like applause. We sat on the blanket with the city glowing around us, passing noodles back and forth, knees pressed together under a second blanket. The night was cool, but Mara kept leaning into my side like she'd decided I was warmer than weather. How did your call go? I asked carefully. She looked out over the rooftops. With my mother? Only if you want to tell me. I do. Mara turned the takeout container in her hands. She tried to make it about tone. I made it about content. She hated that. Sounds efficient. She said I was being stubborn. You are. Mara looked at me. I held up both hands in a magnificent way. Recovered nicely. I panicked. She smiled, then rested her head against my shoulder. I told her I loved her, but I wasn't accepting disappointment as a substitute for conversation anymore. My chest swelled with pride so strong it almost hurt. Mara. And Greg sent an email this morning. Apparently the client asked why my name wasn't on the revised proposal. Seriously? Seriously. Her smile turned slow and sharp. I'm now presenting with him Monday. I nearly dropped my fork. That's amazing. It's terrifying. Also that. She turned toward me fully. The string lights reflected in her eyes. I kept thinking about what you said, that I wasn't difficult for wanting credit. You weren't. I know. She paused. I believed it more because you believed it first. There are moments in a relationship when desire is loud, the doorframe kisses, the elevator wall, the breathless almosts. And then there are moments like that. Quiet, devastating. The kind that make you realize romance isn't just wanting someone close. It's wanting to be worthy of the trust they place in your hands. I brushed my thumb over her cheek. For the record, you would have gotten there without me. Maybe, she leaned into my touch. But I liked having you beside me. Then I'll stay beside you. Her eyes searched mine, vulnerable but not afraid. Promise? I could have made a joke, I almost did. Humor was safer, but Mara deserved the brave version of me. I promise, I said. Not because you need me to handle your battles, because I want the seat next to yours after you win them. Her mouth softened. That, she whispered, was unfairly perfect. I've been practicing. On Julian? He says he feels used. He is. I laughed, and Mara climbed into my lap right there on the roof, careful not to crush the pad thai or our heroic pathos. Her hand slid around my neck. I need to tell you something, she said. My heart jumped. Okay. I was doing it on purpose. The lip biting? The elevator, the coffee, the jar. Her smile went shy at the edges. I didn't need help opening it. I stared at her. Mara Whitcomb. It was a very strategic jar. You manipulated me with marinara? I prefer to say I created an opportunity. For upper body strength and emotional availability? Exactly. I shook my head, grinning. I have been played. You have been courted. The word caught me off guard. Courted? Her fingers toyed with the hair at the nape of my neck. Badly, indirectly, with coffee pods and fake jar emergencies. I loved it. I hoped you would. She swallowed. I liked you before the text, Eli. I was just afraid to be obvious. You? Afraid? Constantly. She looked down. I just dress it better. I cupped her jaw, tipping her gaze back to mine. Thank you for knocking anyway. Her smile trembled. Thank you for opening the door. Then she kissed me under the string lights with the city humming below, slow and sure and full of every unsent thing we had finally been brave enough to say. My arms wrapped around her and hers tightened around me, and for once I didn't feel safe like beige. I felt chosen. So I chose her back. Monday, Mara presented her proposal with Greg standing beside her looking like a man swallowing gravel. I wasn't in the room, but she called me afterward from the sidewalk outside her office. They loved it, she said, breathless. I'm shocked. Liar. Proud liar. There was a pause, then her voice softened. Come over tonight? I looked across the hall at her door even though she was downtown. For jars? For me. I smiled. Always. By the following spring, the pothos had grown long enough to trail down my windowsill, which Mara took as proof that she had improved my life horticulturally and otherwise. Mrs. Bellamy had stopped pretending not to spy and began leaving us coupons for restaurants with date-appropriate lighting. Julian claimed responsibility for the entire relationship because he had technically provoked the text. Mara got promoted that summer. I was in the front row at the small firm party watching her accepted in a green dress that made me forget language. When she spotted me, she bit her lip. On purpose. Afterward, outside under warm evening air, she walked straight into my arms. Still hard to look away from? She asked. Worse now? Good. A year after that accidental text, Mara and I moved into a bigger apartment on the 5th floor. Not because we needed distance from the hallway where everything started, but because we needed room. For her drafting table, my desk, our books, her ridiculous number of mugs, and 3 more plants I was no longer allowed to water unsupervised. On our first night there, rain tapped the windows just like it had that Friday. Mara stood in the kitchen, barefoot, wearing my old sweatshirt, holding her phone with a familiar, dangerous smile. What? I asked. She turned the screen toward me. A new text from her read, If you keep looking at me like that, I'm going to start believing you're doing it on purpose. I looked at her across the boxes, across the mess of our joined-up life, and felt the same impossible thrill as the night she knocked on my door. I set my phone down and walked to her. I am, I said. She laughed as I pulled her close, and the sound filled our new apartment like light. Then Mara rose onto her toes, kissed me softly, and whispered, Finish what you started. So I did. What would you have done if you accidentally sent a flirty text to the neighbor you secretly liked, and 5 minutes later they knocked on your door? Have you ever experienced something like that, where one mistake turned into something unexpectedly real? Tell me your story in the comments. And for those who'd like to be a little closer to us, we've opened memberships where you'll get shorter, exclusive stories every week with no ads. If you liked this one, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.